What's up, everybody? This is Henry Fleischer here from the Cannabis Dispatch, also the CBD Business Networking group on Facebook, and I have a very special guest today. I have Heather Watson of Southern Apothecaries. So, Heather, tell me a little bit more about what Southern Apothecary is about.
Well, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you guys. So, Southern Apothecary, we're a group of scientists who accidentally stumbled into the CBD industry. I'm an analytical chemist and mass spectrometrist. So I was being asked by West Coast people who were scaling up from bench scale to full scale isolation and remediation of THC and CBD years ago. So I got involved in helping them with that process and cleaning it up, also with the analytical side. So I can go in and set up the mass spectrometers, the HPLCs, and help on the analytical side. And then I kind of started questioning some of the processes that were involved in cleaning things up to 0T. There are some dangerous procedures and some people who don't know what they're doing. So I was a user of CBD, but I didn't trust any of the sources because I knew the largest suppliers out there. And so I started making my own just for friends and family, and it just kind of blew up. So that's how Southern Apothecary got started. I'm an analytical chemist by trade, so I have a laboratory as well.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So it's like you already knew the whole process of the chemical compounds and everything that makes a great product. That's awesome. So when
I worked backwards.
Oh, yeah. When did you start Southern Apothecary?
We started Southern Apothecary the day it was legal, of course, in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, so what day was that?
December of 2019.
Oh, okay, got it. Oh, so almost close to 2 years, like a little over a year and a half. Oh, what?
Or maybe 18. Gosh, I don't know. We've been in the cannabis space for years. So I'm a part of the ASTM D37 committee for cannabis on quality control. So one of the first things that piqued my interest was when I found out that they were putting THC isolate down feeding tubes into little babies. And I was like, are they testing for heavy metals? What's the threshold? And people were like, no, they're not. And so I was surrounded by analytical chemists at these large conferences, and we were having these discussions, and we couldn't legally have these conversations under headings of this is the cannabis committee meeting over here. We were just kind of talking off to the side until we could advertise that, okay, we are actually talking about cannabis in this room. And so we were early on all trying to fix these problems that we saw coming as it started exploding.
Yep. So what was it? So was that aha moment to get into that business? Was it like seeing your past experience as a scientist, testing all like the test results where it's, hey, this isn't the purest form of CBD?
Is that how I got into it?
Yeah. What was the aha moment?
Sorry, the aha moment. When they said there was absolutely no regulations and that people were making it in their garages. They said there's no one testing for these heavy metals. I knew that was an issue because the plant sequesters the heavy metals. And I was like, what about arsenic? People were like, nope, no one's testing for this. All they cared about in the wild, wild west was, percentage of CBD, percentage of THC. And even there was a lot of gray area because people didn't understand relative percentage versus a weight percentage. So they were saying, oh, it's 98% CBD, but that did not account for a missing mass of 25%. They were just saying of what they could see of the cannabinoids, 98% was CBD. They weren't even accounting for all the other mass. So there's two different ways of looking at percentages of these compounds as well. And that was a huge error on their part, but they had no idea. And so we got involved very early in that, just to protect the patients and the users.
Oh, yeah. I think that's still a problem, too, in the space is that some brands are trying to take shortcuts and not testing it properly. They're like, hey, I want to get it out on the shelf.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've actually, because I have a laboratory as well, I've seen people take PDFs and then just edit out things that they don't want reported.
Yep.
And so they'll use a legitimate lab, and a lot of them aren't very legitimate, but they'll use a legit lab and find an answer they don't like, and they'll just delete it. So if the arsenic is heavy and the cannabinoid profile is fine, they'll just white out that line or some other magic in Photoshop and just delete it. I've also seen things where people are sending off samples to laboratories only to find out that these people are just falsifying documents. They don't own a lab, they don't have any equipment, they have no scientific background, and they're just falsifying documents. And as long as the samples pass, these people don't investigate any further, and so they just completely make up numbers. That's why accreditation is starting to become a big deal, and that's part of the thing that I'm involved in with ASTM.
Because I did hear stories about some people taking a COA, somebody else, and then changing the names on it when it wasn't really theirs. So that's definitely, there has to be more preventative measures to make sure it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And there's no way to tell if that lot number is really what's in the bottle. I've noticed that a lot of people are doing that. They're taking one C of A that had a THC that passed, and they're applying it to thousands of products that don't even fall under that lot number.
Oh, yeah. So when you first opened up Southern Apothecary, what was the toughest thing you went through?
What? Yeah, you have to talk louder. I'm so sorry. My phone is not being loud and I have it all the way up.
So yeah, what was the toughest thing you went through when you first opened up?
The toughest thing was legality. I struggled with, and I'm in the South, and so I struggled with just, social pressures of, oh, this is like devil's lettuce, but I also struggled with legalities of what's legal, what's not, what has to be on the bottle, what doesn't, what has to be in the C of A and what doesn't. And the further I dug, the more I realized that even agencies that are supposed to control those things, it's falling through the cracks. So there aren't people that are actually governing them. And then in other spaces, there are too many people trying to govern them, FDA versus DEA versus a state regulatory agency, and they have different standards or a different idea of what they're supposed to be controlling or what that definition is, the 0.3% THC versus total THC. And it's just been the wild, wild west. And there's no one really regulating it, or no one that's educated at the state level that's talking to these legislators when they're making these documents and voting on them, except lawyers from other states that have their own personal interest at heart, I believe. There's no scientist that's involved from what I can tell. Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama. I've talked to a lot of people and they're just like, why don't you go down there and educate them? And I'm like, that's really not my place. If they need me, they'll call me. I've kind of been under the radar, just doing my own thing and making good products and helping people. Don't really want to get involved in lobbying or anything.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely a big challenge too in CBD. Is that the mass population's not educated on the benefits in the endocannabinoid system.
Correct.
And knowing everything you know now, is there anything you do differently if you have to do it over again?
I would hire somebody who knows website and marketing because we are scientists. So there are three of us with Southern Apothecary. Clay Knight and Corey Blanchard are partners with me. They're engineers, environmental scientists, microbiologists. I'm analytical and biochemist. So we are not educated on legalities of things. We've had to learn that the hard way. And we've also tried to do our own marketing just because this was bootstrap. We don't have investors. We did not have any large overhead. We just kind of, as we made money, we dumped it back in the company and improved. And, we've even developed our own extraction procedure and built it all, we've done all of that. So I would probably go back and say, okay, I should have spent money and gotten a professional to do my website because we did it ourselves.
Oh, wow. And what would you say is the toughest thing about running a business this year?
That's trying to track trends, because you don't really know if you've had a bad month, you don't really know if it's because people have lost their income or if it's, am I being filtered out by social media? That's happening a lot too. So it's kind of hard to track trends. And especially with the lack of, so the same thing. So we've had people filtering us out with algorithms and social media, but we've also had the fact that people have lost their income. So I don't really know what's happening there in the past year and a half, but I would love to be able to find and target exactly who has lost income and be able to help them more. It's just not clear in our traffic, in our sales, who we could do that with, especially since we have wholesale partners and storefronts. They could be just going there. So I would love to be able to track things like that. Where's everyone going? Do you need our help, with finances because, you've lost your job? That's been kind of tough with COVID, and it's just been a weird year, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if a customer was to choose between your business and three others just like yours, why'd you suggest they go with you first?
Well, there's not one just like us, so that's what makes us unique. There's no other single strain ethanol extracted hemp extract out there. There's not one, and we've left it that way on purpose.
Ah, got it. And what's the number one way you acquire new customers?
What do we do to acquire new customers?
Yep.
We need to do that with marketing. We do not have a marketing team. It's all been word of mouth. And so when social media filters you out by 90%, it kind of hits your bottom line. But we've always been word of mouth, and we've been okay that way. But I would love to grow in some way by networking and getting the social media presence back up to where we're not being filtered.
Oh yeah, no, that is like that's just a whole industry
Yeah,
issue right now because yeah, Facebook and Google don't allow you certain privileges.
exactly.
But I know they have it's like you gotta be outside of it's like yeah, you gotta get creative.
Yeah, you do.
I think that's with anything, especially any bootstrap company, they find a way. They get really creative.
Yeah. I've been more creative. So we not only extract and do a proprietary process, but we also formulate. So I've kind of been creative in that outlet. So I have farmers or I have storefronts that want something that's not out there. And so we're creative in that way. We're just not creative in marketing, like I said.
Like you have a great product, like especially because you do all the proper testing. It's like you do all the right things. So that will speak for itself. And people will know.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Anyone who tries it, very initially a few years ago, we when people would try it, they would see like, okay, this has 1,000 mgs on there, but I can go over here and get 3,000 mgs, and I'm like, no, just try it. This entourage effect is real, and I know the process. They go and try to add the terpenes back, and they get the ratios wrong, or it's just not representative of what the plant's energy was initially. And we're trying to capture all of that because it works so much more effectively. So that 1,000 is going to be so much more impactful and effective than a 3,000 isolate or even a no T product. So it's fantastic. I just have to get it in their hands, right?
Yep.
And we're at an advantage on product development because we have in-house laboratory testing. That's what we do.
And what is your best-selling product?
Oh, wow. The polar roller, the freeze roller is really good. And then the black label, the strongest, of course, hemp extract. And right now we have one that is really high in CBG naturally. So most CBG products, I would argue all of the CBG products that are out there have come from an isolated process. What I was helping with on the West Coast years ago that I don't agree with, the way that it's not natural anymore once you processed it to that extent. But I have an Alabama farmer who grew a high strain CBG naturally, and I extracted it, left all the ratios there. It's been a really fantastic product. I say take that one in the morning and take our frosted lime in the evening, like chill out. So the terpenes smell amazing in that. And then the CBG strain is called Transparency. And so, like I said, I don't isolate and then spike back to increase any numbers. It's just representative of exactly what came out of those plant strains.
Ah, got it. Do you see any other new products coming out with like a way to consume CBD? Because I know right now it's like we have tinctures, we have like the lotions, we have the rub-ons. You see like another type of way to consume CBD. So it could be like I'm just saying like because and gummies is another one too, but like just another form to consume.
Yeah, there are some ways. I don't make gummies. There's a lot of reasons why. Most of the reasons I don't get into edibles, or you have to have food grade products. It's a whole other licensing and distribution regulation. So I don't want to get into it. Plus, it's not as bioavailable, and I'm trying to save my customers and maximize their money. So it's more bioavailable as the sublingual. But I've seen some cool technology with the nano dispersions and then sprays. So like if you just really don't want to hold it under your tongue, which doesn't bother me, but some people just like the uniqueness of the spray and hit the back of your throat and ingest it that way because it's suspended in a nano spray.
Oh, got it. Do you plan on getting into THC once it's fully legal?
We might. We've been talking to some people. Alabama is unique in that I think they're only going to allow like 6 licenses. And from what I understand, you're going to have to really know someone give someone a whole lot of money to get one of those 6 licenses. I'm not that person. I am very small, caring about my people. The people I see that could get them are going to have millions of dollars, a lot of pull, a lot of connections. And unless I partner with one of them, I won't be able to get a medical marijuana license the way they have it currently written, which is a shame because the few that I know that will end up with one because of who they know and the money they have, they don't have any scientific background. And the people that they are just are talking about partnering with have no scientific background. I'm not saying you have to have me. I'm just saying you have to have someone who knows what they're doing to create a quality product, and they have to care about it. Otherwise, they're going to make the same shortcuts that I saw happening over and over on the West Coast years ago.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, like their intentions are to get the best people, like to get the people who really know their stuff on their team, and then develop a great product. We'll see, though.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
But yeah, I mean that's like other states too, though. They make it so that the licenses are you have to put a pretty hefty investment into the licenses to start the operation too.
Yeah, there is a barrier to entry to keep out the competition. They're just in it for the money, from what I can tell so far. It's unfortunate.
Oh yeah, like even in schools too. Like we're not taught the endocannabinoid system. I believe that should be taught in biology and science classes too.
Well, it's also a thing in nutrition, right? You don't go to medical doctors and ask nutrition advice. And if you do, they're going to tell you, okay, you want to lose weight? Here's a 1,200 calorie diet. And that's not healthy. They're not trained in nutrition. They're trained in the treatment, not the prevention of disease. Because that's where the money is. There's no money in teaching you how to prevent disease, right? It's the same with plant medicine. Actually, when I was working on my finishing up my PhD and writing all of these original research proposals for what I was going to do next, I wanted to take plants, extract them, and run them through this. My specialty is mass spectrometry. I was going to create all of these databases to where even if you didn't identify each of the components, you could look for patterns that would trigger, hey, this is a good plant medicine for this or that. And I was looking at pharmacy schools who also had like greenhouses. And so I was just going to scan them all through these really high-tech pieces of equipment and create these image maps. And I was like, okay, this could be very useful in the future for identifying plants with healing powers. There's a way you can do it with a data analysis software. I got shot down so fast because, first of all, it's a pharmacy school. I was very naive and thinking, okay, well, why would anyone fund this? You know, it's not going to make them money. It's preventative medicine. It's not big pharma. So I was, I've always been interested in plant medicine, but I was naive as to how the world works back then with how it was going to get funded. NSF's not going to fund that. NIH is not going to fund that. And so the universities aren't going to hire you to research that.
Oh, yeah. In the next 6 to 12 months, where would you like to see Southern Apothecary?
Well, definitely would like to help more people. I just sit on the phone a lot of times and talk to older people and listen to their stories. You know, my husband's helped with Parkinson's. He can feed himself now. And my back pain is gone. And they said I needed surgery. And I just love to talk to people and help. So I would like a greater reach, obviously. And if we could get into medical to help with the quality control there in Alabama, I would love to help that as well.
Yeah, got it. Another thing too with CBD is it actually helps some kids with some debilitating conditions too. So like there should be a way, I guess, like obviously too, the parents should get permission to have CBD for the kids. So that'll be interesting to see too.
Yeah, I would love that because I get that question a lot. And just from a legal standpoint, you know, I have to just say, I cannot advise anything about your children. I mean, even FDA approved drugs, they don't want to pay to have them labeled as like child safe because it's a very expensive process to have things tested and approved for children, right? So even in breastfeeding mothers, I hear that a lot too. So I have to be very careful legally on what I can say and not say. Mm-hmm. I'm very frustrated with the FDA on their approval of CBD for the certain type of seizure in children. I talked to the scientist at UAB years ago. I asked him because he published his preliminary studies, and he was like, "Yeah, this works for seizure treatment, etc. But it's causing a headache in a few people." Well, I looked at the product; it was right there in his study. and it was the FDA approved version, and it had a sugar alcohol, a synthetic sweetener in there. I don't remember if it was sorbitol, but I asked him, I was like, hey, can you not just test CBD for this? And, you know, a controlled study would only isolate the variable that you're trying to study on this condition. And he said, no, we can only use the FDA approved version, and it has the sweetener in it. And I was like, well, that causes headaches in me and many people that I know. So I would hate to see that attributed to CBD and it actually be the artificial sweetener. And he just basically ignored the fact that they had not isolated the variable, and to accurately make that conclusion, he wouldn't do it because money. I mean, it's FDA approved, right? For this one person to sell this one drug, but it has sweetener in it.
I know, because like the hemp plant has many uses as well too. So it looks like you're heavy on the consumption side, but have you done research too on the industrial side with hemp fibers?
Of the what?
For hemp fibers and how they can be used for industrial use.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of years in industry for fats, oils, fibers, cellulosic materials. I have about 7.5 years in industry for that. I would have to see the economics improve to make that an industrial viable source of these fibers. It just seems like it's going to be very expensive, and you can't. I believe that farmers and a lot of investors are under the assumption that you can use the tops of these plants for these cannabinoid extractions and the bottoms for fibers. And that's not the way it works. So they need to understand, hey, I'm growing this other plant for fiber and I'm getting it to a different stage of maturity for that versus I'm growing this plant for a CBD extraction. And they're not seeing that. They're thinking that they're going to have this one investment and be able to make a lot of money in these two revenue streams, and you're not.
Because I think there's going to be a huge demand for the industrial side, like hemp plastics, biodegradable, and then you can even make hemp wood, even clothing as well too is another thing. Relative to wood, the hemp growth cycle is much shorter, and it's better.
For like bamboo,
So I still think, yeah, like there's going to be demand for that, for those materials.
I think there's going to be demand. There's also demand for a lot of things that aren't economically viable. You've got to get the technology just right because, it looks greener. This is what I used to be in for years is green chemistry and conversion of like bio waste to a high value product. The middle part is getting it economically feasible because it doesn't cost compare in the manufacturing to make it make you have enough profit margin to make it feasible. So going to have to get to a more economically feasible place in the technology before we can really take off with it. I love it. I love hemp plastics, the straws, etc. I've had some of these things. It's just expensive to make, right?
Yep. But I think too, like maybe like because then there'll be a demand for those products that'll cause the price to go down. You know?
Yes, if they can make it that way. Yes.
I mean, like Henry Ford built a car out of hemp, and they try to throw an axe at it, and then the axe went backwards. So it's like there's a lot of uses, and even as fuel.
Absolutely.
It's still just amazing how one plant can have so many uses.
Right. And we're scratching the surface just with this plant. You know, there's so many other plants that we could get into. This one, obviously, it has a lot of interest because of THC, and people like to feel intoxicated. So it draws a lot of attention, both negative and good, but there's so many plants that can be useful for medicine and other good things, right? We just haven't investigated them. And they're, like I said, one of the driving forces is who's going to get funded to do that? Like, who is going to give you the funding to study all of these things?
Oh yeah, it's very true. And even to, I just lost my train of thought too. I was saying, with like the hempcrete's like another thing too. They're saying that's a really strong material.
Yeah, I'm part of a like an innovative small business incubator program with the University of Alabama around here. So I've heard a lot of these things. I've seen like feminine products made from bamboo. I've seen hempcrete and the different ways that you could use that. I've seen some really cool ideas, and even incorporating like phase change materials into concrete and building materials to help control the temperatures. I mean, I've been a part of a lot of cool technologies over the years because of that, and because of my industrial experience in the biomaterials and converting them to higher value materials. It's it's always that expense in the middle. You can have a great idea and you can have a great product in the end. It always ends up being, oh, it costs way too much to make in the middle. That's what we have to get down.
Yeah, because like just saying like, oh, to have like a house made entirely of hemp would be like the dream.
Sure.
Because it's like it's more bug resistant too.
Yeah.
So I think that'll definitely be something interesting to see. Because like even on the housing market, there's some out of the box ways people build houses. Like you can make houses from shipping containers. I thought that was
Yeah, I like that.
Because yeah, just like really, just like you can get so creative with this one material. I wonder too if like I was just thinking about this. What about in like if they could make like pans and pots out of hemp? I'm not sure if that's possible though, but that just came to mind.
Pans and pot.
Yeah,
Maybe.
just because if Henry Ford was able to build a car out of
Yeah.
materials, maybe the pans and pots too. And so what advice would you give to somebody thinking about entering the hemp space?
Who's about to enter the hemp space?
Yep, who's thinking about entering it? Like they have interest, they want to find a way to get in.
Make sure you have the right partners with the right motives. There are a lot of people who are going to steal your ideas. Be careful who you share it with. Not everyone who is nice to you or has, just use some discernment about who you share your ideas with, and make sure that product's not already out there. I think that so many things have oversaturated the market. It drives the price down. Well, why are we going to have another CBD isolate product? Why are you going to put your name on this? I have people that want to white label with me a lot, and I'm like, all right, how are you going to set yourself apart in this market? I mean, we can make this, but there are 30 other brands selling exactly the same thing. How about I create something unique for you that's going to set you apart, so that you're not competing for the same customers, So try to set yourself apart, because there are some things that are pretty saturated out there, and you don't want to have to lose your shirt. I've seen people putting their house, getting second mortgages and then investing in farming. Like, that sounded great, except that there's 8,000 pounds sitting in this barn down the street that no one will buy. Like, just be really careful and make sure you have an end user, and be careful who you enter contracts with. I see it all the time where farmers especially are getting taken advantage of. I'm going to buy everything, but go ahead and plant 20 acres. I promise I'll pay cash on delivery. They never do. They find something, their lawyers are good, and they find something that's wrong with it and they get out of it, and now you're stuck with it, and you have $100,000 in debt to grow this for them, and they can just walk away. I see that a lot.
Oh, yeah, I've heard all those stories too.
Yeah.
Like farmers are sitting on crops from 2019 that sitting there.
Another unfortunate thing is they're getting it extracted and trying to sell it, and it was moldy. I've seen that as well. I've seen 18-wheeler loads of hemp that's slimy and smells like rotting whale. And they drop it off, and an extractor takes it and turns it into CBD isolate. This is why I got out of that part, and that's gross.
Oh, because I know there's some broker, like I know brokers get a bad name. There's some good ones out there, but like the bad ones that really have turned people off too. Like, because it's easy to become a broker. It's a low barrier to entry to broker.
Yeah, I don't have any middleman, and I think that's another place that I was naive. Every time I meet someone, I'm like, oh, you should know them. And I introduce everyone to who they need to be connected with. And people are like, why aren't you buying it and upping it and then selling it? And I'm like, that's just not who I am. I didn't even know that was a thing, but that's a broker, and I don't do that.
Got it. What's the best way somebody can contact you as well? Like on social media?
Yeah. Our website is southapothecary.com. Social media, Facebook is Southern Apothecary, and Instagram is The Southern Apothecary. So my email address is hwatson@southapothecary.com.
Awesome. It was great to have you on, and you're more than welcome to be back on for future interviews. We would definitely look forward to hearing your input on the
Thanks, Andrew. It's nice to meet you too.
Chemistry of CBD and hemp. Awesome.
It was hard to hear that one.
So for the future, like we definitely have good insights into the chemical compounds for hemp. So we definitely can cover a lot about that and other things as well too.
Yeah, I'm happy to help educate with that.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.